Okay, I'll go ahead and get started now since it's 6 o'clock. I'm kind of tired, so forgive my being if I'm slow, scatterbrained, or otherwise sound unenthusiastic. Okay. Hello again, my friends. Welcome to the third panel I will be hosting at this winter summit. This panel is all about Draconic and Draithconic spirituality, how to practice Draconic spiritual paths, how to connect with Draconic guardians, and addressing common misinformation regarding Draconic spirituality, which there is a lot of, sadly. There aren't really a lot of reputable resources written about Draconic spirituality, and there is especially a lack of Draconic spirituality resources written by Dragonkind and Draconic identifying individuals. I have been practicing my own Draithconic spiritual path since my awakening as my true self in March of 2020. My spiritual path directly stems from my spirituality, my true Draconian self, Luunaathh, reveres. I've been practicing this path for a long, long time, so needless to say, Draconic spirituality and Draconic paganism is a major interest of mine. And they are interests I have, I guess one would say, a considerable amount of knowledge of. I enjoy talking about spirituality, which is a large part of why I decided to do this panel at the summit this year. Some aspects of this panel will be taken from my Draconic spirituality post called The Sphere of Draconic Magick, addressing common misinformation about Draconic spirituality, which is a resource I wrote debunking some of the misinformation detailed in DJ Conway's popular book, Dragon Magick, Call on the Clans to Help Your Practice Soar. That will be discussed later in the panel, though. Without further ado, though, let's get on with some Durg spirituality. In my experience, practicing a Draithconic or Draconic spiritual path as someone who identifies as Draconic is incredibly rewarding since it allows my being to be more in tune with my non-human Draconic aspects, and has allowed my being to discover my non-human existences better. It has also allowed my being to feel a better connection with the world around my being. Like I mentioned earlier, I follow a unique Draithconic spiritual path that my true Draconian self Luunaathh follows and reveres upon her or my home realms. My Draithconic spiritual path revolves around a divine triad of creational Draconian beings that I know as the Original One, the Tempest One, and the Volcanic One. The Almighty Original One, who is Luunaath's father by technicality, is the creator of my existence in home realms, with full reign over creational matter, the void, and energy. He is the being that I give my eternal thanks and reverence to every single night, as he is the main divinity of the original Draconian triad. Whoops, lost my place. The Almighty Tempest One is the Draconian creator divinity of the sky, storms, water, and lightning. The Almighty Volcanic One is the Draconian creator divinity of the earth, fire, and souls. The Draconian triad are three beings that only I know. I'm pretty much their only follower upon this earth, since, again, I'm the only one who knows them, which they don't mind, really. I engage in indigenous practices, such as seasonal ceremonies, danza, and other sacred celebrations alongside my Draithconic spiritual path, since I am indigenous Mesoamerican upon this earth, and feel that honoring my indigenous heritage is just as important as recognizing my Draconic and non-human aspects. My Draconity and engaging in indigenous ceremonies often conflicts with my Draconity, though I do my best to balance it out. Indigenous ceremonies, or indigenous North American ceremonies, often honor the creator, the earth, and the sky, so it is not truly out of place for my being to honor the original Draconian triad in my rituals. Not in my rituals, in indigenous ceremonies or otherwise indigenous practices. Though I honor the Almighty Original One the most, I still do my best to honor the elemental divinities of the Draconian triad in the best way that I can. My experience with Draithconic spirituality is far from the only experience, though. Draithconic or Draconic spiritual paths as a whole are an incredibly varied and unique expanse of spiritual beliefs and practices that have a lot to offer to willing participants. Sadly, though, like I said before, there is a lot of confusion and misinformation surrounding Draconic spirituality as a whole. Again, I will be discussing that later. Though for now, I will just be describing regular aspects of Draconic spiritual paths. So many of you listening in might might be wondering what in the hell Draithconic means. Draithconic is a personal term that I created to describe spiritual paths that revolve around draconity in some way, shape, or form. It's essentially just a fun alternative term for a draconic spiritual path that sounds like Gothic or Chthonic, however you pronounce that word. If you like words of that type, and if you feel that the word Draithconic best fits your spirituality, then do feel free to use the word. It's meant to be there for others to use, not just for my being to use. Now on to general draconic spirituality. Though many people will dispute this statement, there is no one way to practice a draconic spiritual path, or a spiritual path in general. The way each individual practices their spirituality and understands their spiritual viewpoint are unique and heavily varied. Those who practice spirituality really should practice whatever feels most comfortable to them and whatever they feel makes them feel most connected with their spirituality. As long as none of these things are harmful to the practitioner or anyone else, of course. Sadly, many self-proclaimed spiritual leaders claim that their methods of ritual, spiritual belief, and general tradition are the only true ways to practice a certain aspect of spirituality that they believe everyone must follow. They believe that individuals practicing spirituality in non-traditional ways, or not in the way they want to practice spirituality, are wrong in doing so, which is not right. This is the same way with the draconic spirituality community, sadly. Some avid dragon spirituality practitioners will start getting the false idea in their heads that their ways of viewing dragons and spirituality are somehow the universally correct ways to view dragons and draconic spirituality, like they're enlightened or something, and they're the chosen dragon ones or whatever. Those individuals are as irritating as they are wrong. Do not listen to individuals that try to act like they're enlightened or dictate how you should be practicing your spiritual path. Practice spirituality at your own pace, on your own time, and at your own comfort. Following a spiritual path does not have to be strict or stressful. Spirituality should not bring stress or unnecessary obligation into your life. You never have any obligation to practice spirituality in the traditional way or in the way that most others practice it. You also have no obligation to adhere to a strict ritual calendar or schedule. Those only work for individuals who feel that such practices work for them. So how do you start a draconic spiritual path? The very simplified answer is do what you feel connects with your spirituality most. The long answer I will go ahead and start detailing. Finding out how to start practicing your spiritual path can be difficult at times. It can be hard to find what materials to use for rituals, what kind of rituals or forms of meditation, prayer, and deep thinking help you to connect with your spirituality, and how you should go about maintaining a proper ritualistic routine. Everything I just mentioned is not required to properly practice a spiritual path, however. It is just some common things that individuals who practice draconic spiritual paths practice. In regards to maintaining a proper ritualistic routine, like I said before, in truth, you do not ever need to have a ritual schedule or a ritual routine. Sometimes having a ritualistic routine is good for some individuals, though for others it can be exhausting, overwhelming, and lead to spiritual burnout. Despite what others may tell you, it is always best to practice spirituality and rituals on your own time and at the pace you feel comfortable with. Additionally, the entities or deities you should work with should always be understanding of your comfort, your time, and your presence. Do not work with them otherwise if they demand unreasonable things from you or make you uncomfortable. Respect is a two-way street, even among deities or spirits and followers. Finding materials to use in rituals can be difficult at times, especially since it can be hard to find the right materials that resonate with you and your spirituality the most. Keep in mind that you do not have to use materials in rituals. They are just tools to help you complete rituals or to help you feel more connected with yourself. Some common materials many pagans and Wiccans use for burning are certain leaves, herbs, and incenses that can be found at many spirituality shops. Common rocks and crystals used by pagans are amethyst, quartz, obsidian, selenite, and other mineral things. Some individuals even use animal bones, fur, and miscellaneous parts of animals in order to better connect with nature, animal spirits, and general spirituality. Items used for rituals do not have to be traditional ones, like the ones I just mentioned, however. Honestly, you can use whatever the hell you wish in your spiritual rituals. It is your spiritual path, after all. You can hold up an apple as an offering in a prayer to divine dragons. You can bake cookies as a part of a spiritual ritual or offering. You can even talk to plants as a part of your spirituality. If you feel using these materials in these ways conforms best to your spiritual paths and beliefs, then that is perfectly understandable. No one should judge you for doing such. Whatever feels right to you and whatever makes you feel happy is what you should practice in your spiritual path. Each experience is unique and individual after all. It is okay to stray from common norms in the spirituality community, no matter what others tell you. A spiritual path is supposed to bring one fulfillment and happiness, so avoid using materials, doing rituals, or engaging in practices that make you feel uncomfortable, or you feel does not feel good, Now, altars are a very common practice among many religions and miscellaneous spiritualities, though they are not necessary to properly practice spirituality or to practice rituals. They are just things and setups you can use if you feel they would help you practice rituals, connect with your spirituality, or even if you feel that they would just be pretty to have in your space. You can place whatever you wish on your altar, whatever you feel fits, or whatever you feel helps during rituals, meditation, or whatever else. In reality, you can make an altar to anything or for anything. It is a shrine of appreciation for something after all. You can place plastic toys on your altar, you can place food, you can place crystals, you can place decorations, pottery. You can even have an aquarium as a part of your altar. My altar has a few crystals, some pottery, and my snail aquarium is also a part of my altar. Just place whatever you want on the altar. It's your spirituality, it's your space. Do whatever you wish. Now, many individuals who either currently practice or want to practice draconic spiritual paths wish to know how to work with draconic guardians or dragon spirits. Dragon guardians, in the spirituality sense, are draconic beings who work with you spectrally during the walk of your spiritual path, guide you in the right direction, or give you protection over the course of your life. Sometimes, though, dragon guardians are simply welcome spectral companions to have around or interact with. You do not need to practice a spiritual path to encounter a dragon guardian or interact with one. Not all interactions with dragon guardians have to be formal or serious, either. You can just talk to them casually if they feel comfortable with that. The most important aspect of finding a draconic spiritual guardian is making sure you find one that is respectful of you, understanding of you, and one that works best with you. You do not want... Interacting with and working with any spiritual guardian is like picking the people you hang out with. You do not want to work with people who are disrespectful of you, not willing to understand you, or unwilling to be respectful of your boundaries. Pick who you work with wisely. Sometimes spirits and entities can be difficult to get rid of once they get attached to you. As for attracting a guardian or finding a draconic guardian, there are multiple ways to do such. One way to find your draconic guardian is simply to let them approach you first. Sometimes dragon guardians find their way to you on their own, or sometimes they have been following you for a while without you even knowing. Another way you can attract a draconic guardian is by calling out to them, so to speak, whether that be through your mind, speaking physically as I am now, or calling out to them in meditation, astral travel, astral plane things, whatever. Yeah, there are many different ways you can call out to a spirit, though some common ways you can call out to a spirit is by lighting a candle on an altar as an offering, burning something as an offering to the spirit, placing food or other offerings out for them, simply speaking to the air and vocally attempting to speak to them. Again, these are not the only ways to call out to your draconic guardians, however, and you can contact or attract a draconic guardian in your own way and at your own pace. Try to find things or methods that you feel would work best for you in attracting your draconic guardian. And remember, not all interactions with a draconic guardian have to be serious. Sometimes draconic guardians can be friends or welcome companions with you on your life. They do not have to be entities that you directly revere. Respect them, of course, though there's never any... Well, there shouldn't be an obligation to worship them or anything if you do not feel comfortable with that. As some Dragonkind and Draconic identifying individuals know, practicing a Draconic spiritual path alongside being Dragonkind can be an incredibly rewarding experience and a euphoric one. Sometimes practicing a Draithconic spiritual path as someone who identifies as Draconic can lead to individuals recovering past life or concurrent life memories, having stronger phantom shifts, stronger Draconic instincts, stronger spectral limbs, and lead to general discoveries about one's Draconic self. Some Dragonkind, like myself, practice spiritual paths or spirituality that were or are prominent in past or concurrent lives. Sometimes Dragonkind who have memories of their spirituality already know most, if not all, details surrounding their Draconic spirituality from their past or concurrent lives, while other Dragonkind are currently in the process of remembering their spirituality. Remembering one's Draconic spirituality, if they had one as a dragon, can be difficult or it can be easy. It's very much different for everyone. However, some Dragonkind do not have spiritualities from when they were a dragon, though rather create their own spiritual paths upon this earth that conform to their draconity in a way. Spirituality and practicing spirituality is different for everyone, including dragons and Draconic identifying individuals. Just do what feels right to you, whatever you feel comfortable with. You don't have to practice things in the traditional way is essentially the running theme whenever you receive spiritual advice. Now, for some Dragonkind, their experience with draconity is mostly, if not entirely, spiritual in nature. Connecting to the spiritual aspects of one's draconity, if they identify as spiritual, can be worthwhile for said individuals. Further exploring the spiritual aspects of one's draconity can lead to many new discoveries about oneself, recovery of past life or concurrent life memories, and it can just allow an individual to feel more connected to their Draconic self. Whether one wishes to do this by practicing spiritual paths and exploring spirituality or not is entirely up to them. That's really all for the general information I have on my script. Now, if we want to address Draconic spirituality and the misinformation about it, we really do have to talk about a popular alternative spirituality writer by the name of Conway. Some of you may know who this person is, or was. She is deceased as of 2019. Obviously, it is not my intention with this part of the panel to speak ill of the dead and gone. However, death does not make anyone immune from criticism. When there exist notable issues with their actions, their words, life works, or actions that have negatively affected others. For those of you who do not know, DJ Conway is, or was, a popular alternative spirituality and Wiccan writer who mainly focused on dragons, dragon guardians, and draconic spiritual paths, alongside Wicca and traditional European paganism. In her books about dragons and draconic spirituality, she presents her own personal truth about dragons as universal fact that everyone who practices draconic spirituality is expected to follow. One of my written resources, The Sphere of Draconic Magick, addressing common misinformation on draconic spirituality, addresses and debunks a lot of DJ Conway's claims as an alternative spirituality writer. I will go ahead and present some notable statements from DJ Conway's book, Dragon Magick, Call on the Clans to Make Your Practice Soar, that have some, glaring issues, then to say the least. Let my being switch to my resource, and I will go over some of these statements. Let's see. In page 19 of Conway's book, she states, "The magician who wishes to practice dragon magic cannot afford any lingering doubts regarding whether they have the right to ask these powerful entities for help," end quote. Now, for individuals who are beginning their walk with spirituality or are beginning to forge a connection with a non-physical entity, having doubts and fears regarding their spiritual path and future experiences is entirely understandable and completely normal. There is nothing wrong with being nervous or even being doubtful about your spiritual path and guardians. It's a natural process for many people. Dragon guardians, if they are right to work with you, will understand that nervousness is a very natural part of walking one's spiritual path a lot of times. It takes time to build confidence in oneself and their spiritual views. It's not something that should be rushed, and it's certainly something someone should be scorned for. The universe will not curse you for feeling a certain way when you practice your spirituality. Let's see. In page 20 of Conway's book, she states, like many other beings, dragons will take advantage of anyone who wavers in their commitment or who is unclear about the intent of a ritual, end quote. The aforementioned statement is one that implies that all dragons inherently hold the intent to take advantage of others, one which is not true by any means. Not all dragon guardians are strict or demand complete confidence within an individual who works with them. Many draconic guardians are kind, understanding, and willing to practice patience with those they choose to work with. Additionally, not all dragon guardians expect others to be entirely serious with them. Dragon guardians can simply be friends or welcome companions that an individual has in their life. To add, not all dragons possess the levels of sapience or intelligence to exact revenge on an individual or exploit their vulnerabilities. Some dragons or the kin types of dragon kind simply have the minds of regular animals, unconcerned with forging connections or expressing sapient behaviors. See, in page 22 of Conway's book, she states, even the most positive dragon is a wily beast who, like humans, tend to look out for themselves first. Dragons likely developed this attitude after trying to work with humans thousands of years ago and finding puny mortals to be unreliable and often treacherous allies, end quote. There is a lot wrong with that statement. The aforementioned statement implies that every single dragon holds the sapience to knowingly put themselves before others in every situation, which is entirely false. Not every dragon in the entirety of existence holds the level of sapience or the thought processes needed for the attitude of selfishness to be held. Not all dragons are immortal, though, or differentiate themselves from beings or species that would be considered mortal. A lot of dragons also do not hold the view that other species other than themselves are puny mortals or treacherous allies. The statement also implies that all dragons are beings with the level of sapience to view humans and other races as lesser beings. Painting all dragons as elitist beings who view anyone weaker than themselves or different as them as lesser or lower is incredibly, incredibly disingenuous. In page 23 of Conway's book, she states, why bother cultivating the cooperation and the companionship of dragons? Because their wisdom and elemental type energies are unequaled, boundless, end quote. The aforementioned statement, again, brings to the table the fact of varying sapience among different kinds of dragons. Not all dragons possess the capacity to hold wisdom or even have the ability to speak or spread wisdom through ritual and ceremonial contact. Even for dragons that do have the capacity to hold wisdom, a lot of times their knowledge is not something that could be considered by the terms boundless or unequaled. Not all dragons are bound by elements or have elemental energies either. In page 23 of Conway's book, she states, a true knowledge-seeking magician weighs all possibilities for use in their magic, keeping what feels right and discarding the rest, end quote. The phrasing of a true knowledge-seeking magician implies that individuals walking spiritual paths who do not weigh all possibilities before rituals, ceremonies, or contacting spectral entities are not true knowledge-seeking magicians. A practitioner of energy work or spirituality does not always need to consider absolutely everything before a ritual, especially a simple ritual of smaller size. Not every ritual needs to be entirely serious in nature as well. Again, not everything surrounding spiritual paths needs to be entirely serious. It is perfectly acceptable to do rituals and ceremonies without an immense amount of thought or introspection. Sometimes you can do rituals because they make you feel better, and that's all there is to it. It doesn't have to be super serious. Let's see, over a few of these. Oh boy, this is something, I'll tell you what. In page 31 of Conway's book, she states, the more humans on this plane who open themselves to the reality of dragons, the more dragons of other timelines and levels became aware of us. It turned out to be a fortuitous situation, especially for the endangered dragons of other multiversial levels. They were facing both a pandemic and a physical genocide by other creatures. By May 2010, at least 18 new clans had escaped to Earth, and since then there have been others. Now suddenly we need to study all the old and new dragon clans so we can all exist in peace and harmony, end quote. That was a statement. There is no evidence to suggest that dragons in their entirety faced a physical genocide or a pandemic. Naming dates of specific astral events claimed by individuals is really on the level of doomsday cultists naming when they know that the world will come to an end or whatever. There is no way to prove that by May 2010, dragons escaped to Earth in clan systems. If you believe that dragons did escape from a physical genocide in clan systems, that's okay, though. I mean, it's just don't force that as universal fact on others, you know? If that's your belief, if you believe that dragon clans escaped to Earth, that's fine. Just don't present it as universal fact or something that applies to every single dragon. Extraordinary claims like that require extraordinary evidence, and there is no evidence to back up the claim of astral travel happening between dragons after escaping from other planets and contacting humans or whatever. Let's see. Skipping over a few here. Let's see. In page 32 of Conway's book, she states, dragons think of time in terms of hundreds and thousands of years, while our idea of time concept runs to the hundreds. This is because dragons live so much longer than the normal human does, end quote. Not all dragons have the level of sapience to perceive time as a concept, nor do all dragons live as long as humans do. Some dragons may live longer than humans, though some dragons may live less than humans. Sometimes they may live the same time as humans. Not all dragons live thousands of years, as DJ Conway states. Yeah. Skip over that. That's kind of an NSFW thing. See, in page 33 of Conway's book, she states, dragons are not reptiles, although they appear that way to humans. Their true origins lie elsewhere, on other planets and distant galaxies. They are mammalian, even though they lay eggs, have scales, and don't suckle their young, end quote. Not every dragon has mammalian features, nor do many dragons meet the criteria to be considered a mammal. Many dragons are simply reptiles in every sense. Some dragons can be categorized as something else. It is a disingenuous stretch to state that all dragons meet the criteria to be mammalian, because there are many dragons, like myself, who do not fit the mammalian category. Again, in page 33 of Conway's book, she states, it is questionable if wyverns, dragon-like creatures whose front legs are their wings, are or ever have been a part of dragon clans, end quote. Yeah, that's not true. What people call wyverns are not dragon-like creatures. They are dragons. Wyverns are just another form of dragon that some people enjoy categorizing as non-dragons, simply because they do not look like common Western dragons. Dragons as a whole are an incredibly varied set of entities. They cannot be put into boxes of specific criteria. Again, in page 33 of Conway's book, she states, there are no multi-headed dragons. Those are called hydras, a very different magical creature, end quote. That is not true. Multi-headed dragons do exist and are in fact real dragons. Denying the existence of these unique kinds of dragons does no good to anyone. As stated previously, dragons are an incredibly varied set of entities that cannot be simply defined by one form, or even just a few forms. Multi-headed dragons are valid. So I'll skip that. That one. Let's see. In page 34 of Conway's book, she states, there is no definite, consistent way to distinguish a female dragon from a male dragon, end quote. That's not true for many dragon species. Many dragon species do have significant features that distinguish between males and females of the species. Dragons of my home existence personally have features that distinguish each from male and female. Let's see. That's an NSFW statement, kind of. In page 35 of Conway's book, she says, "However, do not use poppy. Dragons are allergic to poppy," end quote. The aforementioned statement is a disingenuous stretch. If true in any capacity, a very select few dragons have an allergen to the components in poppy flowers. Many dragons exist separate from Earth and the solar system entirety, being from other worlds, galaxies, or even universes. Poppy flowers are not even known to these draconic beings. And even then, not every dragon has an allergy to poppy flowers. In page 35, again of Conway's book, she states, "Dragons are male or female, determined by their DNA, just as humans are," end quote. Yeah, no. The aforementioned statement not only denies and erases transgender, non-binary, and xenogender experiences among humans, though also among dragons. Many sapient dragon species experience the concept of gender differently, just as individual humans would. Not every dragon identifies with their physical sex, their DNA, or whatever else would traditionally define them as male or female. My draconic self is entirely non-binary. Upon this earth, personally, I do not identify with my physical sex or my DNA as a human. I identify as two-spirit. I believe myself to be another gender entirely. So I do not appreciate that statement personally. Again, in page 35 of Conway's book, she states, "Humans cannot become dragons for any reason, nor would the dragons want it to be that way," end quote. The aforementioned statement kind of denies the entire dragonkind experience. It is possible for humans to be reincarnated as dragons. Draconic kintype recognizes a future incarnation rather than a past one, as it is also possible for dragons to be reincarnated into human bodies. I am almost certain that dragons themselves are not offended or upset by their fellow dragons being reincarnated into human bodies. I and every other individual with the dragonkind community are not lying to ourselves about being dragons and identifying as dragons. Page 35 is something else, y'all. Again, in page 35 of Conway's book, she states, "They, dragons, are an incredibly intelligent species, able to access significantly more information about all things than humans can," end quote. Not all dragons, again, have the sapience to be considered extremely intelligent, or even just intelligent. Many dragons have the behaviors and mindsets similar to bestial or feral creatures upon this earth. Again, not every dragon is considered intelligent. Upon my world, I know some pretty stupid dragons. Yeah, this one shouldn't be too bad. Not too bad. It shouldn't be NSFW. In page 36 of Conway's book, she states, "All dragons mate while flying in the corridor space between this realm and the astral realm, meaning courtship. That space is like a split between space and reality," end quote. Yet not every dragon has the magical ability to fly between space-time to forge relationships. Not all dragons even hold the magical or elemental abilities, and therefore court in much different ways than is described by DJ Conway. I cannot imagine that the only way for a dragon relationship to happen is by freaking flying in the astral realm. Just sounds ridiculous to my being. Page 36 is a fun one too. Page 36 of Conway's book, she states, "Once two dragons decide to become a pair, it is for life, unless one is killed or dies. The remaining one can seek another mate. However, no dragon will get involved with another's mate. That would be breach of clan honor, which would then require the involvement of the High Council," end quote. That's just describing dragon divorce court. Yet not every dragon experiences a divorce court-like process when prior engagements and relationships are somehow compromised. Like, I'm pretty sure adultery is not among dragons is requires needed involvement by the High Council or whatever. Again, in page 36 in Conway's book, she states, honor is very important to dragons, end quote. Yeah, honor and respect are not important to all dragons, or even dragonkind for that matter. Like individual humans, sapient dragons have differences in viewpoints, some have said viewpoints being on the more negative side. Some dragons could care less about honor. Some dragons care more about themselves. Some dragons are just very disrespectful to others. Skip that one. Page 39 of Conway's book, she states, all dragons hide their true names from humans. True names are a combination of musical notes and ordinary dragon speech, end quote. Not every dragon has a name, nor are all dragon names composed of musical notes. Draconic languages are not simply limited to music notes and quote-unquote ordinary dragon speech. They can be much more varied than the author describes. My Draconic language specifically is very much written and has no melodic, what's the word? I guess not tendencies, though traits. My Draconic language is definitely not like that. In page 41 to page 42 of Conway's book, she states, after all, dragons have their actual being in the other world, a realm of much higher vibrations than our earthly plane, end quote. As stated previously, well, not in this panel though, most dragons do not recognize the existence of a realm called the other world, nor do all dragons originate from such realm. I never even heard of the term other realm, other world until I first read DJ Conway's book, and I was like, what the hell? Not every dragon is an inherently spiritual creature that has innate connection to magical realms and magical energies and high vibrations or whatever. Many dragons have no magical abilities or connection to elements, and that's perfectly fine. I'll skip that one, it's kind of long. Oh boy, this one's gonna ruffle some feathers, understandably. In page 43 of Conway's book, she states, humans cannot physically or astrally become dragons, be born as hidden dragons, or become masters of dragons, end quote. The aforementioned statement completely denies the experiences of dragonkind and of the dragonkind community, essentially saying, if you think you're dragonkind, you're just faking. Being dragonkind is impossible, which is not fun. It's not a great statement. Dragons can, in fact, be reborn into human bodies. And humans can experience draconity in the form of psychological identities. Dragons can also manifest within plural systems. It's not great to deny the wide variety of draconic experiences. Page 44 of Conway's book, she states, likewise, dragons do not become humans. Humans are far below their intelligence, end quote. No, the aforementioned statement implies that all dragons are too good to be reborn into human bodies or experience humanity, and implies that all dragons somehow have greater intelligence than humans, both of which are entirely false. As stated previously, not every dragon species holds the level of sapience to be considered intelligent. Even dragons that do hold the level of sapience considered to be more intelligent than humans should not be held to unrealistic elitist standards. Not every dragon thinks that humans are below their intelligence or puny creatures or whatever. In page 44 of Conway's book, she states, dragons are very cunning creatures who have had a turbulent history in the far past with humans, end quote. Not every dragon has encountered humans, nor even has avenues to interact with humans. Many dragons exist separate from human influence on other planets, realms, or universes. Even dragons who have had contact with humans of some kind do not always have strained or dangerous relationships with said people. Let's see. Page 44, this one's more relevant to the spirituality thing. Page 44 of Conway's book, she states, a guardian dragon, as discussed, is an adolescent or fledgling who is learning to work with humans, end quote. The aforementioned statement is entirely false. Most dragon guardians draconic practitioners work with are fully mature dragons that are not learning to work with humans, though rather entities that are experienced and wanting to work with humans. It's just kind of a disingenuous stretch to say that every single dragon guardian that every single person interacts with is a fledgling or a baby dragon. Many dragon guardians are fully adult dragons. My dragon guardians are fully adult. In fact, I am mated to my dragon guardians, and yeah, they are very mature beings. Let's see. I don't need to do that one. I kind of mentioned that one already. Skip that one. Skip that one. It's not relevant to spirituality. Skip that one. In page 61 of Conway's book, she states, somehow, dragons and magic seem to go together. The dragons themselves are magical creatures, but the connection goes beyond that. Dragons are masters in using magic, end quote. Once again, not every dragon in existence holds vast levels of connection to magic and the elements. Not every dragon feels the need to use magic. For some dragons, magic is not important to them. It's a bit tiring to hear that all dragons are somehow magical beings or whatever. See, I'll skip that one. I'll skip that one. See, page 68 of Conway's book, she states, even dragons know the importance of the spiritual, end quote. As stated before, not every dragon recognizes the existence of spiritual concepts, nor does every dragon that has connection to the elements and magic recognizes spiritual importance in any capacity. Spirituality is not important to every single dragon. Not every dragon follows spirituality. Some dragons don't even know what spirituality is, and that's perfectly fine. You know, not all dragons are spiritual. Oh, this is a good one. In page 72 of Conway's book, she states, if the seasons, meaning the seasons upon this earth, begin to fluctuate too much out of cycle, the dragons of the seasons must determine the cause and take action in tandem, whatever that word is, with the elemental dragons to rectify the seasons. The weather dragons also help, end quote. There is no evidence to suggest that upon this earth all seasons are influenced by or controlled by elemental dragons. There also exists no evidence to imply that elemental dragons control Earth's climate. Climate and seasons are a result of completely scientific factors, from the Earth's position of the sun and the tilt of the axle and whatnot. It's not. I mean, as fun as it would be to have seasonal dragons fix every single climate problem this Earth has, that's just, it's not really possible. Page 73 of Conway's book, she states, the dragons have 6 elements, however: earth, air, fire, water, storm, and spirit, or as they call it, the eye of the dragon, end quote. Once again, not every dragon holds connection to the elements, or 6 entire elements. To state that every dragon holds elemental connection denies the experience and the existence of many dragons who do not hold elemental connections. Additionally, not all elemental dragons are just defined by the concepts earth, air, fire, water, storm, and spirit. Dragons can be elemental of a different type. It's not limited to just those 6. I'll skip that one. It's more regarding the chakra thing. That was kind of stupid, though I'll just skip it for the sake of keeping this panel a little short. Oh, this is going to be a great one. Page 107 of Conway's book, he states, I wrote about the first clans in mystical dragon magic. They came to Earth with the humans who fled their dying worlds far out in space. These humans settled in Atlantis and spread their knowledge of civilization among the humans already here. After the fall of Atlantis and the persecution of magical species, the dragons withdrew into another plane of existence. Gradually, the dragons made brief appearances to the people in this timeline, end quote. That's a crazy statement, to say the least. That's especially a crazy statement to present as universal fact, or as fact in general. There are multiple things wrong with that statement. To claim that all dragons originate from planets beyond the solar system, fled with humans from unknown places to the mystical city of Atlantis, a mystical city which has no physical evidence to back up its existence, is just an incredibly extraordinary claim to present as factual information. As fun as it would be for Atlantis, or if you believe in Atlantis, that's fine, though there is no physical evidence to suggest that Atlantis existed, nor is there any physical evidence to suggest that dragons and humans from another planet lived in harmony on Atlantis. Nor is there any evidence that extraterrestrial humans from unknown planets came to the Earth to influence ancient cultures. That's just some ancient alien stuff. Let's see, page 108 of Conway's book, she states, "As a dragon ages, its hide becomes thicker and embedded with magical powers," end quote. As mentioned in my earlier writings, not every dragon holds the ability to practice magic or possess magic. And not every dragon has a scaly hide. Some dragons have fur, some dragons are non-physical, some dragons are, well, they don't really have hides. Not every dragon has a hide. Yes, and some dragons have feathers too. Let's see. Okay, this statement. Okay, on page 137 of Conway's book, she states, "From the deserts of Arizona to the peaks of the Andes, the great feathered or plumed serpent, Quetzalcoatl, was known as a kindly benefactor and rainmaker." Well, first of all, in most Mesoamerican cultures, Quetzalcoatl is not considered a dragon. Quetzalcoatl is a shapeshifter deity. His only form is not the plumed serpent. In Mexica mythology, Quetzalcoatl is usually stated to originate as a human or humanoid deity. Quetzalcoatl is a very sacred god of Mesoamerican culture, who is the subject of many Mexica peoples' reverence and worship. I do not worship Quetzalcoatl as a Mesoamerican person, though I do revere Quetzalcoatl. I respect his existence. Those who claim that Quetzalcoatl is only a dragon and only recognizes Quetzalcoatl as a dragon deity, it kind of erases his existence to Mexica people as a shapeshifter deity. Quetzalcoatl's name in Nahuatl means feathered serpent, or plumed serpent, though it is not his only form, nor is he defined only by the plumed serpent form. Quetzalcoatl has a lot of history behind him, you know? He is not just the plumed serpent. Quetzalcoatl is very sacred to Mexica people. Quetzalcoatl brought corn to the Mexica people from the sacred mountain by taking the form of a giant ant. In other stories, Quetzalcoatl took the form of a jaguar. In other stories, Quetzalcoatl took the form of humans. There's a lot to Quetzalcoatl. He is not just a plumed serpent, despite his name. That's my little indigenous rant, though. See. In page 141 of Conway's book, she states, "The void is a place where no being can go except for the chaos and starborn dragons," end quote. Yeah, no. Okay, my guardian, Luunaathh, the one who talks about quail and stuff, he is not part of a clan. He is not in any way related to DJ Conway's dragons, yet he is able to access the void. So that just blows that out. There do exist entities or dragons that hold the ability to reach the void that are not chaos or starborn dragons. Again, as I said before, my own guardians have the ability to reach the void. Luunaathh himself is a divine being of the void. Did I say? Yeah, void. It is disingenuous to state that only specific entities that only the author knows are the only ones that are able to reach the void or other places in the universe. All right, last statement. Page 174 of DJ Conway's book, she states, "You should never call any dragon by its name unless you have been given direct permission to do so," end quote. Not every dragon in existence holds a name, nor expects others to never say their name unless given permission. To end this specific section of the panel about DJ Conway, again, it is not my intent to perpetuate any disrespect towards the author of Dragon Magick, calling the clans to help your practice soar, nor do I mean to speak ill of the dead and gone. These statements that I have stated, debunking the statements made by DJ Conway, are simply respectful criticisms and corrections of the information presented as fact in said book. Fact of the matter is, there is a lot of misinformation in DJ Conway's books on dragon magic that young, impressionable pagans take as fact, which ends up not only limiting their spiritual experience, though... Yeah. Sorry, I got off track. Yeah, young, impressionable pagans take a lot of DJ Conway's words as fact, which ends up not only limiting their spiritual experience, though also leading them to be, let's say, intolerant of dragonkind and draconic identifying individuals, because DJ Conway specifically states multiple times throughout her career that she does not believe in the existence of dragonkind or draconic identifying individuals. The books also have the effect of making many draconic pagans and many dragonkind feel guilty that their spiritual paths are somehow invalid because they do not match up with what one author presents as the only way to experience a draconic path. It is vital to accept that all spiritual experiences are unique and varied, which should not be defined by pre-existing, closed-minded notions of spirituality. Every experience with draconic magic is valid, no matter how unique or unorthodox said experience is, compared to what some present as the only true ways of practicing a draconic path. That's really everything I have on my script for this panel. If any of you want to speak on this panel and ask questions or provide input on anything I discussed over the course of this panel, feel free to request to speak on stage. In the meantime, I will go ahead and review the panel chat while I wait for some beings to come up on stage and speak. If you want to ask my being about my own spiritual path, my draconic guardians, or even just my own experiences with draconity, just feel free to let my being know on stage or in chat, and I would be happy to answer questions. Oh, I will be looking at the chat. Hello.
Hi. Oh yeah, chat's been interesting. The whole thing, thank you first off, it was super awesome. I never really knew much about DJ Conway at all until just now, so that's quite a handful to kind of go off on a start. Um, you really kind of touched home for me with the Guardian thing. Um, something something I've been kind of keen to for a majority of time since my awakening, really. As far as communication with them and having them in a mind's eye or just a spiritual sense. For you, how do you go about it with when it comes to the Draconic Guardians?
Well, pretty much everyone in the summit has seen how I interact with Volatile, Altanach, and
Mm.
I forgot his name for a second. He's so mad. How I have my interactions with Volatile, Altanach, and Alkanath. I'm so sorry, Alkanath. I love you. Yeah, our interactions are not at all serious. They are very silly, very banter-like. Volatile and Altanach constantly rip on each other and pretend to hate each other. Like, my experience with Draconic Guardians is not at all serious. It's more... Some of the interactions we have are absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Cool. So, like comical relation kind of.
Oh yeah, basically.
That's cool. That's cool. 'Cause so far, mine's more of just kind of been that it's kind of just an extra voice kind of given me a little bit of insight on certain things. Not much has been touched on past that. Nothing quite as in depth as that yet. So that is really cool to think and to hear that that's how your interactions go. I'm just kind of I was just curious on like because I've never thought about like I know obviously we learn all more every day and that's what I'm basically at. It's just crazy to think that I was not the only one with maybe getting kind of that guardian-esque extra, presence or voice or however way it wants to be put kind of thing. So that's really, really interesting. And I'm really happy that you touched base on that too.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, sometimes dragon guardians are more. Sometimes they don't actually speak to someone constantly. They're just watching or just provide very little input over certain periods of time, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
different for everyone. Every experience with a draconic guardian is different. It's not always how it's traditionally described, and
Right.
yeah.
Well, very cool. Very cool. Thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
Okay, that's understandable. Thank you for coming up and speaking on the panel,
Yeah.
Malem.
And then
If anyone else wants to come up and speak, feel free to. Like, ask my being questions or whatever. Hello.
Hey, can you hear me well?
Yes.
All right. So I just want to address the 2 points and then give a tip to my fellow dragons. First, I've always believed that an asshole in life is still an asshole in death, so don't worry about that. And second, thanks for talking about the wyverns. I experienced a really bad time in my first dragon group when I revealed myself as a wyvern. It got better over time, but still, thank you for mentioning it.
Of course, I'm sorry you had a bad experience with that one group.
Yeah, literally asked me if I was sure I was a dragon. So yeah.
Ugh. Awful, awful people.
Yes. And the other thing, I'm sure there are people, well, there are dragons here that identify either as good or bad or somewhere in between. For those that identify as generally lawful good or something like that, and you want to avoid dangerous emotions or get rid of bad thoughts or chaotic thoughts, I just want to share something that I've learned over the years, and it's a tip I always give my fellow dragons when they are trying to find out what they want to do with their life. And it's about the feeling of selfishness, which some of you might associate as a negative emotion. But I have found out that in order to know exactly what you want of your life, what you want for yourself, you need to be a little selfish. And by this, I mean you have to stand alone for a moment, forget about everything that may influence your decisions in everything, forget about the people, your friends, anything. Just stand and feel your own thoughts for a moment so that you can determine the direction you want for your life. And I call that selfishness. You can call that whatever you like, but I think that's very important for the dragon. That's it.
Yeah, that's understandable. Thank you for coming up and speaking. It's much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Yee. The meme is that DJ Conway? Oh, oh, oh. If any others want to
Which one?
speak,
There's so
free
many
to.
memes.
Memes are fun. I'm looking at the chat right now. Hello.
Yeah, so I can't help myself. I just wanna relay a little story for anyone who may not be paying attention to the panel discussion, which I completely understand because it's a chaotic storm right now. So I actually forgot who DJ Conway was until this panel, and then I looked up DJ Conway on Google Images. This woman was revered in a local bookstore of mine. It's a witchy tourist trap, and her books are the most popular ones among specifically the naive and elderly. And I just felt the need to say that. Like, it is such a shame that this caliber of literature is impacting us this badly. I mean, mostly you guys, because obviously you know my stance on things. I'm strictly psychological, but still, it has a negative impact on the community, and it sucks. So, as others have commented, unfortunately, there are times where it may not be the worst thing to disparage somebody who has passed if the damage they have caused extends beyond the grave. That's all I wanted to say. I'm going to go now. Goodbye.
That's understandable. Thank you for speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is an absolute freaking shame how DJ Conway has affected the Draconic communities and the view of the Draconic communities. I would not imagine. I would not imagine, though. I don't doubt that some non-other kind who have read DJ Conway's books associate all of us in the Dragonkind community based only on things that DJ Conway has written, and that is no fun. Like, we're so varied and unique. We are, like, as an entire group of beings, we are so much more unique than how DJ Conway portrays us as. I'm laughing because I'm thinking about that stupid statement that, well, there goes my respectfulness in this panel. I'm thinking about that one statement that DJ Conway said that all dragons have to, if any dragon wants to be in a relationship, all dragons need to physically fly through the astral plane or whatever. I guess my relationship with my guardians is invalid because I didn't shapeshift into a dragon and fly into the astral realm or whatever. I don't know if the chat's being recorded, and honestly, I've only looked at a few little tidbits of the chat, though. It's funny. The few bits of the chat that I have seen are pretty hilarious. Y'all are awesome. Anyone else wants to come up and speak? Go for it. I'm gonna see if I can find any more of those stupid statements by DJ Conway. I'm gonna say stupid because my respectfulness of this panel has already gone out the window. I did write a bit about my Draconic Guardians in the Fear of Draconic Magic resource, so I guess I can read off of that while I'm waiting for others to speak or whatever. Let's see, I can elaborate more on the love of my life, my astral guardian, and my teacher Luunaathh, who in his truth, I can't speak. Luunaathh is a non-perceivable divine draconic being of the void. I've never actually, upon this earth, I've never actually seen Luunaathh, and our way of communication is really weird because, again, he's non-perceivable. I can't perceive him upon this earth. I technically can't talk to him upon this earth. So, kind of weird. No. He has many threatening and imposing names associated with death, the void, and darkness. And he is very, very intelligent. He is very smart, even though he acts kind of stupid in chat. Luunaathh is incredibly strict towards my being, and he would be considered. The way he speaks to my being sometimes is what one would consider bad, though to my being he isn't. To my being, when he speaks to my being that way, it isn't like that. He always encourages my being to follow the laws and tradition of Draithconic culture. Draithconic culture is the Draconic culture that exists upon my home realms. He heavily encourages my being to follow those traditions, though he is also at the same time very understanding and lenient with my being, especially considering that I have a severe mental illness called schizoaffective depressive type. I also suffer with OCD, depression, and general anxiety disorder. Schizoaffective specifically makes any kind of communication with my guardians incredibly difficult due to the severe mental symptoms I experience on a daily basis. For my being, sometimes it can be very difficult to distinguish what is a voice and what is actually my guardian speaking to my being, though I've gotten pretty good at distinguishing what's real and what isn't. In times where my mental illness is more difficult to deal with, my guardians just refrain from directly speaking to my being, and they just pass on their intentions through my being, so to speak, if that makes sense. Luunaathh, as you all know, communicates his words and intentions through his own personal Discord account with the username Aleph Null. His nickname is Aleph. It's a reference to a mathematical concept called Aleph Null. Luunaathh likes to interact with others, even though he's kind of withdrawn and he's pretty emotionless, though he's actually pretty good at expressing emotion through text, even though he barely has any feelings whatsoever. It sounds bad, though. Luunaathh, he really can't feel most things. He just doesn't have very many emotions. And as you all know, most of you all notice a difference between when I speak on Discord and when my guardians speak. Luunaathh, when he speaks on my Discord, he is noticeably more intelligent, detailed, and composed with his wordings. Luunaathh also oftentimes takes over for my being in difficult situations where my mind is scatterbrained, or at times when I wouldn't be able myself to handle the situations in the way he does. Another Draconic guardian I consult with goes by the name Luunaathh. He also goes by Madara. He breaks practically every single preconceived notion regarding Draconic guardians, as well as dragons in general. He is incredibly vulgar, aggressive, and this is a PG-13 panel, so I won't say the next part though. Luunaathh, he is an intelligent being, though he acts stupid. He holds no issues with starting arguments with those he knows, loudly expressing himself and mocking anyone who does him wrong. He's like an edgy teenager, if an edgy teenager was a divine dragon being. Luunaathh, he's also entirely unconcerned with how others feel about him, whether those feelings are positive or negative. That means that Luunaathh is always messing with Luunaathh and always making him angry and upset. And Luunaathh knows that there's nothing he can do about it, because I would be upset if he hurt Luunaathh, and yeah. Luunaathh takes full advantage of that. You all should see their private interactions. They're hilarious. Luunaathh is abrasive in his approach to spiritual advice and ritual advice, being that is how his everyday personality is. Though he is still kind to my being, he just fucks around all the time. As with Luunaathh, Luunaathh also speaks on Discord with his own separate account, Madara Redacted, for the same reasons as the rest of my guardians. Luunaathh he's also considered a thought form, because I consider him a thought form because of his origins upon my home realm, and because he likes to masquerade as an anime character called Madara Uchiha, and not only because Madara Uchiha looks a lot like Luunaathh as he is upon my home realm, though he also does it because I have an obsession with Madara Uchiha, and he's just like, he just decided one day, like, okay, how about I masquerade as this character for you? And I was like, yes, please? And yeah. One of the more subtle and calm Draconic guardians I have contact with is Alkanath. He is very calm, organized, and uninfluenced by emotions as like anger, frustration, or fury. Luunaathh is an entity who does not believe the influence of negative feelings upon actions does any kind of good for everyone. That's just his personal view. He chooses to masquerade as the Naruto character Tobirama Senju for the same reasons as Volatile, which defines him as a thought form in a way too. Their interactions are a lot of fun. Luunaathh and Volatile are also they are boyfriends. They love each other so much. I have trouble sometimes pronouncing Altunakh's name and Luunaath's name. It can be confusing at times. I know my experience with my Draconic Guardians is vastly different than nearly every other individual's experience, though I don't think it diminishes my experiences with my Draconic Guardians or my experiences with my spiritual path. Many may choose to state that my experiences with my Draconic spiritual path is invalid due to my experiences with Draconity being so unorthodox, though truly, genuinely, I really don't care about the words of those individuals. Yet it may hurt to hear that, though in the end I really don't care. My experiences with Draconic entities and spirituality are genuine and valid, despite what others, DJ Conway specifically, may try to say to my being. I wonder if DJ Conway ever met my being, how she would react to my experiences. If she would be like, "What the fuck are your experiences? You disrespect to dragons by being this way. How dare you?" And I mean, that'll never happen, obviously, because DJ Conway's deceased now, though. I can only imagine what our interactions would be like. Probably really argumentative. Again, if anyone else wants to come up and speak or ask my being questions, feel free to. I don't think there's a panel after this. No, there's no panel after this, so we can just drone on and on all we want to, really. If no one else wants to come up and speak, though, then I can end the panel in about 10 minutes or so. I can only imagine how DJ Conway would view a Dragonkind experience that matches more with Fictionkin. Fictionkin are valid, Fictionkind, Draconic Fictionkind. I can only imagine that DJ Conway would be like, "What the fuck? Why would you think this?" And I just say, "Shut up, bitch. You don't get to talk to us that way." Like I said, all respectfulness went out the window. I'm sorry, though. Well, I am sorry, kind of, because I said earlier in this panel, it's not my intention to speak ill of the dead, and then in the other half of the panel, I go off and start swearing and throwing out insults and I like gnawing on bones. Every time. I'll end the panel in 7 minutes, though. For now, I'm just going to read the chat and just banter on because it's fun. Every time I go into the pet store, I always look at the bones for dogs and think, I want to chew on those. That may be from my werewolf stereotype, that may be from my draconic self, though. I want to chew on the dog bones. I also want to eat wet cat food. I want to eat wet dog food. I want to eat kibble. I want to eat everything that a dog and a cat eats. I don't know if cat food and dog food is fit for human consumption, though damn, it looks good. And every time I smell the cat food and dog food, I'm like, Oh my lord, that smells so good. I get jealous of my cat sometimes because he gets to have all the delicious cat food and I don't get to have any delicious cat food. Sad. So sad. This is thoughts one, basically. Can people eat catnip? I don't. And if people can eat catnip, can they like get high from it? Oh, it has no effect on people. Catnip salad. Isn't marijuana human grade catnip? Oh, okay, that makes sense. I'm curious, what do you all think about Altanach and the absolute outlandish shit he says about quail? He has this obsession with quail. It started as an obsession with round birds upon him and I's home realms, and it just like he suddenly became obsessed with this one round bird species upon our home realms, and it culminated into this entire joking obsession over quail about oh they're round like the universe or whatever. They're like orbs. Like I think it was the first day of the summit in the main chat. There was a whole purple dragons versus quail war that was going on. Like Altanach was being stupid about quail, and then someone in the chat spammed uh, purple dragon emojis, and then it culminated into this whole oh, Altanach thought it was dragon war versus quail. It was so stupid. Hello, friend. If you're trying to speak, I can't hear you. Am cannot hear if you're trying to speak. I apologize. If you're trying to speak, then usually like closing Discord and then rejoining after closing Discord usually fixes the audio issues for my being. I'm pretty sure Altanach is going to start his quail shit again tonight, so look forward to that. It's not a real Draconic summit without Altanach saying something stupid about quail and then it turning into some chaotic thing. His Altanach's favorite sentence is "Holy nest of the quail." It's so stupid. says Quail wants Avalanche. Holy quailness. Well, it is 20 minutes after panel running time, so I'll go ahead and 500 quails versus Conway. That's awesome. I'll go ahead and end the panel here. So thank you all for attending. I appreciate you all listening and putting up with my banter at the end of this panel. It was actually pretty fun looking at the chat and being kind of oof. There are no more panels tonight. Tomorrow, we are going to be having that New Year's voice chat that anyone can hop in. We're going to be having the first episode of Close Encounters of the Dragonkind. We're going to be having the Draconic Summit D&D first session, and if I can get Volatile's voice changer to work, we're going to have his panel, his mature Draconic panel, the 18 plus panel, the unique forms of Draconic love, courtship, and yada yada. I think I will be able to get his voice changer to work, though if not, he'll just have to do his panel through text, though. Again, thank you all for joining and listening in. It's much appreciated. I really enjoy doing these panels at the summit, and I enjoy hosting the summit, so it really warms my heart when others are having fun and being interested in the panels that happen here. So again, thank you all for joining. I'll stop rambling now and have a good rest of the night, and hopefully you are looking forward to the last day of the summit tomorrow. Lemon, bye.